Welcome to production theory, where we're going to learn the conversion of raw materials into finished output. So under production theory, we must understand that output is noted by the letter F, which is often in terms of the factors that we have as labor and capital. So labor units are denoted by L, capital units are denoted by K. The reward for labor is called a what? A wage. And the reward for a rental is called what? Reward for capital is called a rental. This gives us our few equations that we need to take note of. So the total product of labor is given by TP, or letter Q. When we divide the total product of labor by labor units, we call that the average product of labor. The change in the total product of labor over change in labor units is what we call the marginal product of labor. So when we multiply the marginal product of labor times the price, what we get is called the marginal revenue product. Now, under production, we need to understand that to maximize production, you must ensure that the marginal revenue product is greater than a wage, which we also call marginal resource cost. So we also must understand that if you're given the units of labor and the price, maybe we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and here we're given our so this is our total product of labor if you want. Then we have labor units. Okay, labor units of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And here we have output 0, 10, maybe 24, maybe 36, maybe 40, maybe 40. All right, so to find what we call average product of labor, we say average product of labor is simply the total product of labor divided by what? Labor units. So 0 into 0 is infinite. 1 into 10 is 10. 2 into 24, 12. 3 into 36 is 12. 4 into 40 is 10. Then we also have what we call the marginal revenue or marginal product of labor. This is simply the change in total product over change in the labor units. So the total product here, so the 0 minus nothing is nothing. 10 minus 0 over 1 minus 0 is 10. 24 minus 10 over 2 minus 1. How do we get? 14. 36 minus 24 over 3 minus 2. What do we get? 6 plus 6, 12. 40 minus 36 over
Mr. Collins.
Yes, please. Are we together? So here we're just dividing this in there.
Mr. Collins.
Yes, please.
Yes, only should be number 3. 10 minus 24. It's 14. Then 14 divided by 2. It's 7, not 14.
24 minus 24 minus 10. What do we get?
14.
14. Then 2 minus 1.
Oh, 1. Okay. All right. Okay. I thought, okay.
14. Then here is 36 minus 24. What do we get? 12. Then this is 1. Then here we have 40 minus 36 is what? 4. And here we have a 4. Then here 35 minus 40 is -5, -5. Here we have -5. All right. Then we'll be given a price, for instance. Our price is 10 kwacha. So you put 10 kwacha plot, 10 kwacha, 10 kwacha, 10 kwacha, 10 kwacha. So marginal revenue product, who remembers, is when you multiply the price times the marginal product. So here it is 100, here it is 140, here it is 120, here it is 40, here it is -50. Okay. Then the marginal resource cost, maybe they tell you it is 120 throughout, 120, 120, 120. That is your wage. Then they ask you how many units of labor must we employ to maximize production. You go where they're equal. 100 is got 120. So you employ how many laborers? 30 laborers. So this is an epitome of what this question was all about. Average product, you divide the labor units into the total product. So 100 divided by 1, we get that. This divided by that, we get that. This divided, we divide this column by that to get this column. Marginal product, you're just getting the differences. 100 minus 0, 100, 250 minus that. Okay, until you get 700 minus 250. That is how we get this column. The total cost we've been given. Total revenue is price times quantity. So price is 55. Quantity units we have here. All right. So multiply 55 times 0, 0, 55 times 1, 55 times 200, and then you put them there. The profit is when you subtract total revenue minus total cost. So this is how this was supposed to be done, the 16 marks that you're supposed to get from there. Are we together?
So on the part of profit revenue, we have to subtract, this is total revenue minus the, which one, total cost?
Yes, profit is total revenue minus total cost. So here's negative, something negative, there are losses, or yes. Yes. All right. Then part B, briefly explain any 3 types of businesses. I think we mentioned this in the first class. What businesses do we know? So there are several types of businesses. We have sole proprietorship. This is a type of business which is a one-man show where the owner has complete control of all the responsibilities and liabilities. Easy to set up and flexible decision-making where the owner is got unlimited liability. Partnership, structure of 2 or more who come together to run a business under a partnership deed with joint authority. And here, this deed can either be oral or written. They have unlimited liability and responsibilities. Advantages as there is a pool of resource and expertise. Disadvantages that they have unlimited liability and prone to die. A corporation is a legal entity separate from its owners. The owners in this case are called shareholders, who are managed by the board of directors. Corporation offers protection for its owners because of the separate legal entity, that the debts of the company are limited to their stock holdings. And this, however, is subject to regulations and formalities. So these are the different types of businesses that we have. Get your 9 marks. Right, so we go to question number 4. So let's start with part B, which we just answered in the previous session. State any 5 characteristics of a perfectly competitive market. What are the 5 characteristics of a perfectly competitive market? We talked about several of them. Who remembers? Characteristics of perfectly competitive market. Come on. I spoke of 10 just a short while ago. Please. Give me any 5 characteristics of a perfect competitive market. Messi.
One and of the market.
I didn't get that.
I was saying it is that there's freedom of entry and exit of the market. Yes.
What else? All right, so we spoke about 10. I gave you 10 short while ago. So we said number 1, the alleged numbers of buyers and sellers. In this market structure, the goods are identical or homogeneous, making them perfect substitutes for each other. Like tomato here, tomato there, there's nothing like it's differentiated, it's the same. There's perfect information, meaning buyers and sellers have complete and accurate information about the prices, quality, available products on the market. So you can't lie to somebody that tomato is 5 kwacha, you know that it's supposed to be 4 kwacha. There's free entry and exit, so there are no barriers to entry, meaning firms here can exit whenever they feel like and enter the market without any restrictions. They are price takers, both buyers and sellers will take the price, meaning they have no control over the market price. They have to accept the prevailing price, which is determined by the market forces. There is perfect mobility of resources such as labor capital, which can move freely between firms or industries based on the market conditions. They make zero economic profit in the long run. Firms are perfectly competitive and may earn only normal profits in the short run, meaning the revenue is equal to the total cost, both including both explicit and implicit costs. Okay, what other characteristics do we have? Perfectly elastic in this market structure, perfectly elastic. Then there is efficient allocation of resources, meaning resources are allocated efficiently in a perfectly competitive market as price mechanism guides the allocation of resources. There's no market power. No individual has market power to influence the outcomes of the market. So this is about characteristics. So briefly explain the key differences and similarities between normative and positive economics, direct and indirect tax, price control, which is price ceiling and floor price versus taxation, fixed and average cost, substitute and complementary goods. So can somebody explain the similarities and differences between those two? All right. So let me start with normative economics. So when you're dealing with positive and normative economics. Positive economics basically refers to the objective of factual analysis of an economic phenomenon. So it simply discusses or describes and explains how the economy functions without making value judgments. Positive economics is based on empirical evidence that can be tested and verified, whereas normative economics is one that involves subjective judgments and opinions about what should be done about an economy. It therefore deals with the value judgments, opinions, policy recommendation. So normative economic statements cannot be tested, proven right or wrong, as they are based on individual perspectives and values. So in summary, positive economics deals with describing, explaining the way things in the economy are, whereas normative deals with describing and recommending how things should be. All right. So let's look at direct and indirect tax and the key differences between the two. Direct and indirect tax and the key differences between the two. So direct tax is usually levied on individuals or entities based on their income, profits, or wealth. It is directly paid by the person or entity whom it is imposed. Examples of direct tax include income tax, corporate tax, property tax, whereas indirect tax, on the other hand, is tax imposed on goods and services. It is collected as an intermediary, where the seller is a service provider who passes the tax burden to the final consumer. So indirect taxes are usually included in the price of the goods we buy and the services. So these ones are not directly paid by consumer to the government, except that this government has actually modified the type of taxing because people withhold. So if somebody makes a payment to a government agency, they will deduct the price of the tax which will be paid to government directly. The difference between the indirect and direct tax lies in the way they are levied. Direct tax are imposed on individuals and entities as they are based on a financial capacity, whereas indirect taxes are imposed on goods and services, with the burden ultimately falling on the consumer. Are we together on that? Okay. So let's go to price controls. What is price ceiling, floor pricing, and how do we understand taxation? So anyone who could try to attempt, I explained all this. Dealing with price controls refer to government regulations that establish the maximum and minimum prices for a good and service. So price ceiling is the government imposed limit on how high good must be, aiming to protect the consumers from exploitation. Low price, on the other hand, is a minimum of how low producers must go to protect the producers. Taxation, on the other hand, involves levying and collection of taxes by government on individuals like businesses, on goods or services. So taxes are used in the fiscal policies of government to generate revenue for government operations. So there are taxes that are imposed on various individuals, goods and services for what we call government spending. So government taxing is important for redistribution of wealth and also influencing the economic behavior. The difference between tax and price controls is in their objectives. So price controls basically regulate the prices, aiming to influence affordability and to avoid exploitation, whereas taxation is primarily the main revenue generation tool that government uses as an incentive to discourage or encourage economic activities. So what is a fixed average cost or substitute and complementary good? So when you're dealing with fixed and average costs, basically, what are we looking at? Fixed costs are costs that do not change with production. They are fixed, constant, regardless of the quantities of services that are produced. Examples include rent, salaries of permanent employees, and also insurance. Those are fixed costs. What are average costs? What are average costs? Average costs are simply defined as follows. These are costs per unit of an output that are calculated by dividing the sum of the fixed and the variable costs divided by the quantity. So average costs indicate the average expense to produce each unit of an output, where the key differences between fixed and average costs are that fixed is constant, regardless of production. Average fluctuates depending on the level of output. So as production increases, fixed costs will spread over a large quantity, leading to a decrease in the average cost. Lastly, what is a substitute and a complementary good? How do we distinguish the two? Okay, this is a song that I've been singing almost every day to say other substitute goods are goods that enjoy the same usage. These are complementary goods, where substitute goods are goods with alternatives to each other. So if we have coffee which increases in price, people will find a substitute for coffee, which could be tea. Whereas complementary goods are goods which are often used together, meaning the demand for one good will affect the demand for the other. So headphones, if they become cheaper, people will be motivated to buy phones. So the key difference in the two goods is their relationship. Substitute goods have alternative choices. Increase in price of one will result in a shift in demand for the other, whereas complementary goods, changes in price or demand in one will affect the demand of the other. So positive elasticity goes with substitute, whereas negative elasticity goes with complements. Are we getting there? Are we following? All right. So we now go to question number 3. Market for rentals, carbonated drinks, bottled water, iPhone are summarized in the table below. Initially in equilibrium. Suppose that the indicated event in table occurs in events in the column. Illustrate with the aid of diagram. Explain with each event on supply and demand and indicate the change on equilibrium for each of the following. So we have market, rental apartments, and mortgages under the events are more difficult to qualify due to housing marketing crash. carbonated drinks, Ronaldo's comment about the fear of contracting sugar disease through the consumption of carbonated drinks. Boiled water in Chumba. Here we are told that an event happened, an earthquake resulting in waves destroying the bottles, and bottled plants were severely damaged, and this delivers clean water to Shinyemba households. iPhone 6, here we told Apple introduces the latest incarnation of the smartphone. iPhone 6, consumers rush to order the other. So here, we just want to understand what is happening in terms of demand and supply to react to these comments here. So anyone who can try to explain the reactions of these in terms of demand. So for the first part on the rental apartments, let me just explain so that you understand. So on the rental apartments, if there's an increase in demand for rental apartments, what will happen to the demand? It will shift the curve to the right, indicating that there is higher quantity demanded at each price level. This would result in an increased equilibrium. So graphically, it will look like this on the apartments. So initial demand, so we have the same supply, but demand has increased from D0 to D1. There'll be a shift to the right. So what is causing the shift to the right? So this is explanation. So what is happening here is this. So apartments, there's an increase in demand, it will shift the curve to the right, indicating that there's higher quantity demand at each level. So this would result in both the equilibrium and the quantity conversely. So our initial equilibrium was here at E1. So it will shift to the right. So E1 here, then we have E2. That is what is happening because of the demand increasing. So equilibrium will shift to the right. Okay. The next part, we're told that carbonated drinks. Now, Ronaldo makes a comment on these carbonated drinks to say there'll be sugar disease. What will happen? What will happen to the demand after that comment? So demand will shift. So if there's an increase in demand for carbonated drinks, the demand will shift to the right, indicating a higher quantity demanded at each price level. This would result in both equilibrium and quantity increasing, but conversely, the demand will shift to the left after that comment, indicating a lower quantity demanded at each price level. This would lead to equilibrium being to the left. So the changes in supply will also be affected here. So what is happening once people hear a sentiment that carbonated drinks have a detrimental effect on health? So D0 is our original, D1 is our new demand. So this will cause a shift inward to the left, causing the equilibrium to shift from E1 to E2. People demand less of this. So this is what is happening just by that comment. That's what they've been using, brand ambassadors. And you will notice that most of the celebrities don't comment anyhow on people's products, because this would result in killing a brand significantly. There's one time when Oprah made a comment on meat, now that she stopped eating meat, and their followers stopped buying meat. The meat industry at that point went down drastically. So this was because of just the comment that was made. So Ronaldo's comments on the preferences of carbonated drinks leading to a decrease in demand would cause a shift to the left, resulting in a lower equilibrium. The supply of carbonated drinks would not directly be affected by his comments unless it changes the production or availability. Therefore, the effect will be on the equilibrium. The supply will still remain the same, but the equilibrium will change. All right. So, boiled water in Senyumba is an earthquake that results into waves that destroy stores of bottled water, and the bottled water plants as well are severely damaged. Infrastructure that delivers clean water to Senyumba household. So what does this effect have? So regarding the boiled water, this earthquake may destroy the stores of boiled water, and it would also decrease the supply of this water. So it would cause a shift into the supply curve to the left, resulting in higher equilibrium and low quantity supplied for the bottled water. So here, what they want you to understand is which curve will be affected. So here, when the earthquake touches, so this is supply 1, or supply 0, then the demand, we have the same demand. So when what happens, the demand will shift D0 to D1. And the demand will not be affected, sorry. The supply will shift upwards from S0 to S1, causing equilibrium to change from E0 to E1. So this is what happens when the bottled water in Senyumba, if the earthquake resulting to destroy the works and infrastructure, it will cause the supply to shift where? To the left. This shift to the left will cause a reduction in supply because the infrastructure has been destroyed. All right. We go to finally iPhone. We are told that an iPhone store, which there's been an announcement to say there's the latest iPhone that has come on board. What will happen to the demand of iPhones? So here, what is at effect? We need to understand that the introduction of the iPhone 6 would likely increase the demand for the product due to excitement that people have. So this would shift the demand to the right, resulting in a high equilibrium and quantity. However, if riots cut production, it would decrease supply of iPhone 6. This would shift the supply to the left, which will also lead to a higher equilibrium. So these are just illustrations based on how we understand the law of demand and supply. So with a new iPhone, we must understand that the introduction of a new iPhone would increase the demand. So this is our supply. Supply is upsloping. So S0. Demand has D0 to D1. So it will cause a shift in demand to the right. So causing the equilibrium to move from E1 to E2. So however, if riots would cause a cut in production, the shift will be from the left to the right. So basically, that's how we're supposed to answer questions on the shifts. Okay. So, any questions? Are we following?
We are following, sir.
Yes. All right. So we've been given another scenario question there, where we are told we're told in this question to say you have learned that tax can lead to an increase in equilibrium of your price. In this case, the consumer bears some of the tax burden because the producer usually does not pass the entire burden to the consumer. Briefly explain why producers may not pass the entire burden to the consumers. So whenever a tax has been imposed, we must understand that there is what we call tax sharing. And producers ideally are supposed to lump, according to the statement, to the consumers all of it, but they will not do that. Explain why. So number one, it is because of what? Price elasticity of demand. Number two, because of the competition in the market. So how do I explain these? So this is the reason that you could give. So price elasticity of demand, if the demand for a particular product is elastic, meaning consumers are sensitive to it. So increasing the price will basically make consumers reluctant to buying that particular product, especially if there is a close substitute. So if the particular demand is elastic, it means consumers are sensitive to any small price changes. So these will significantly affect the demand. So producers are mainly reluctant to pass the entire tax burden to consumers. So increasing price too much may lead to higher decrease in quantity demanded, resulting in potential loss for revenue for the producers. Therefore, they may just absorb a portion of the tax burden to maintain their competitiveness. The other one is on market competition. So in a competitive market, producers face competition from other firms offering similar products. So if the producer increases the price significantly due to tax burden, consumers will simply switch to other brands. To avoid losing their market, they'll absorb some of the tax. Lastly, profit considerations. Consumers may consider their profit margins when deciding how much of the tax burden to pass through. So if the tax increase significantly reduces their profit, they may absorb the tax burden to maintain their relevance in the market. So passing the entire burden to consumers will potentially reduce their profitability. So that is how we're supposed to answer this question. All right. So any questions so far? All right. What is a subsidy, and explain why government may choose to give a subsidy? Why do you think government may choose to give a subsidy? So a subsidy may be given for many reasons, but three of the following. Number one, government may want to promote a certain sector. So they may provide subsidies to support specific industries. For instance, agriculture is one that this government wants to promote. So government has been adding subsidies to promote agricultural sector. And now the renewable sector. So most of the people importing alternative sources of power in renewable energy have so much subsidies. Also, subsidies are given to correct market failures. So subsidies can be used as a policy to address market failures that promote socially desirable outcomes. So in certain cases, the markets fail to allocate resources efficiently, leading to underproduction or underconsumption of certain goods and services that have positive externalities. Subsidies.
Mr. Collins, what did you
Yes.
say? What did you say on the first part? That to promote what?
Okay, so let me help you. Let me just to. So when we are promoting a particular industry or sector, government may come in to bring in subsidies. For instance, in this case where we had a scourge in power, Zambian government came in to reduce or remove all subsidy, remove all taxes to do with what? Renewable energy, alternative sources of power, gensets. Government came in to promote the growth of the energy sector. Sometimes government will introduce subsidies if they want to address certain market failures. So market failures that come up because of allocative inefficiencies in the market, they would want to bring in certain subsidies to promote consumption of certain products or to equate the distribution of wealth in the country. For areas like peri-urban areas where activities are low, they will subsidize the price of energy that people can have space to increase productivity. Government also may increase or reduce subsidies when they are addressing social issues. For instance, subsidies can be employed to reduce inequality, to support disadvantaged individuals in society, like the disabled, or children, or the girl child. Government may provide subsidies for certain basic needs like food, housing, sanitaries, and access to education. So when they want to reduce an inequality and addressing certain social issues, so subsidies may come in place. Are we together? Right.
So, so on the third part, you're just supposed to say reducing inequality or addressing social issues, is it?
Yes. Exactly. All right. So now we can go to computation of elasticity. So I think we've done this question several times. When you're given the price of good A, 10 kwacha, price of good B, so here put a 10 kwacha here. Good B is 12.5, 12.5. And income is 5 kwacha. So already the signs for these are opposites. So you're able to tell that these ones are what? Are substitute goods. So they're negative and negative would say these are complementary goods. So here the income has a negative, so we can tell that this is an inferior good. Okay, so now let's calculate on price elasticity. So firstly, we substitute the figures there. We're going to have 150 minus 30 plus what we get there. 15 carry 1. 75 minus what? 50. So here we have minus 15, and here we have 25. 25 minus 15 is 10. So to find on price elasticity, we get the gradient for good A, -3, times the actual price of good A, 10 kwacha over 10. So here we get -3. What is our comment? Demand is elastic. All right. Have you understood what I've done here?
Come again, sir.
So when calculating, we first substitute the prices that we've been given, 10, 12.5, and 5. The total is what? 10. And like I explained in the previous class, to find on price elasticity, the formula is PED is equal to what? Change in X times the price of good X over the quantity of good X. So what is the gradient for good X? Gradient is -3. So put -3. What is the price of good X? Price of good X has been given as what? 10 kwacha, and the quantity for X is 10 kwacha. So you put 10 over 10. So this will be -3. So demand here is elastic. If we had -0.3 to be inelastic. Then we go to cross price elasticity, to change in good Y times price of good Y over quantity of good X. So what was our price change in good Y? Positive 6. And the price of good X, 12.5. So here I have positive 6, 12.5 over 10. Okay. So what do we get when we compute there? So 6 times 12.5 divided by 10. Everything. What are we getting? Please you help me by responding. I don't have a calculator with me. So I will assume people have understood. So 6 times 12.5 divided by 10. Get 7.5. So 7.5 is a positive. So positive elasticity means these are what? Substitute goods. Okay. So we go to another elasticity of income. Income elasticity of demand. So this is change in income times income over quantity of good X. So here, what is our change in income? -10. Then 5 over 10. So here I have -10, 5 over 10. So here we're going to get -5. So if income is negative, it is called an inferior good. So this is how we calculate that. Okay, so we end here for now. We end here for now. So we're going to meet again later on today I'll send the video through. Thank you so much for your time.